The morning sunlight glimmered off the ocean, streaks of gold dancing across the rippling waves near the naval base. A quiet breeze swept through the memorial courtyard where veterans from all eras stood, gathered for a ceremony honoring fallen soldiers. Flags waved, medals shone, and the low hum of conversation filled the air. Then, everything changed when the Admiral stepped to the podium and spotted a man in the back row, standing tall, silent, and wearing a weathered uniform that told more stories than words ever could. His eyes were steady, his face marked by years of hardship and grief. The Admiral's voice faltered for a moment. "You there, soldier," he said. "What's your call sign?" The man hesitated, the crowd turning toward him. Then, in a deep, steady tone that carried across the courtyard, he said, "Ghost 5. The Admiral's face went pale as if he'd seen a ghost, and, in a way, he had. If you believe in kindness, courage, and second chances, then pause for a moment, like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal to help us spread these stories to the world. Because sometimes one act of grace can change a life forever." The man's real name was Eli Mercer, a 38-year-old single father living in a small coastal town not far from the base. To most people, he was just a quiet mechanic who worked long hours fixing fishing boats, raising his 10-year-old daughter Mia and keeping to himself. But behind that quiet smile lived memories so heavy they haunted him in silence. He had once been one of the Navy's most skilled combat rescue pilots, known among his team as Ghost 5. A name earned not just for his ability to slip through danger undetected, but because he always came back except the one time that mattered most. Years earlier, Eli had led a nighttime extraction mission deep in hostile waters. His crew, 4 men he called brothers, never made it home. He was the only one pulled from the wreckage. The guilt of surviving when others didn't was a wound that never healed. He left the service, sold his house, and disappeared from the life he once knew. His only anchor now was Mia, his reason to keep breathing, keep trying, keep living. Every day he dropped her off at school, smiled, and told her, "Be brave today, kiddo." But every night after she slept, he sat by the window staring out at the sea, whispering names only he remembered. Life was hard, but steady. Until that day. The ceremony had been just another community event Maya's teacher invited him to attend. She wanted to honor local veterans, and Mia begged him to come. "Please, Dad." "They said maybe an admiral will be there. You can tell him about your plane." He smiled and agreed, though deep down he didn't want to talk about any of it. But he went for her. When the Admiral recognized his call sign, the air seemed to freeze. Admiral Ross, a decorated officer known for his composure, took a step forward, his voice trembling. You're Ghost 5, from Operation Sapphire Dawn." Eli nodded slowly. The crowd murmured, a few veterans exchanged looks. Ross's hands gripped the podium. "We thought you were dead. That mission, none of the reports ever said you made it out." Eli looked down. "I almost didn't, sir." A heavy silence fell over the courtyard. Ross swallowed hard, emotion flickering in his eyes. "Son," he said quietly, "if you're who I think you are, you don't owe anyone an explanation. But you deserve to know. What happened that night was never your fault. But guilt doesn't fade just because someone tells you to let go." After the ceremony, as people approached to shake his hand, Eli's mind replayed that final mission like a broken film reel. The explosion, the fire, the radio silence, the screams. He politely thanked people, but his heart raced. Admiral Ross caught up to him afterward, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I need to talk to you, Mercer. Please." They met later at the base hangar. Inside, the faint smell of oil and sea salt lingered. Ross stood across from him holding an old mission log. "We recovered new data from that crash site 6 months ago," the Admiral said. "Your co-pilot, Lieutenant Harris, sent one final message," he said. "Ghost 5 made the drop. Tell his girl he kept his word. You saved 20 civilians that night, Eli. 20. You didn't fail them." Eli's jaw tightened, tears threatening to surface. He whispered, "I left my men behind." Ross shook his head firmly. "You carried out your duty. You brought those people home. Your brothers knew the risk. You honored them by surviving." For the first time in years, Eli felt something shift inside, a weight he'd carried for too long starting to tremble under the truth. He hadn't been a ghost after all. He was a man who had done everything he could in impossible circumstances. Still, scars like his don't vanish overnight. A few weeks later, Admiral Ross visited Eli's home. Mia answered the door, her bright eyes lighting up. "Are you my dad's boss?" she asked with innocent curiosity. Ross smiled warmly. "Something like that, sweetheart." He stepped inside, noticing the photos, most of Mia, few of Ely in uniform. He could see a man trying to rebuild piece by piece. Ross had come with an offer. The Navy had launched a mentorship program for veterans, helping them transition back into civilian life by guiding young recruits. "We need people like you, Ghost. People who've lived through the hard stuff and still found a way to stand tall," Ross said. "You'd be helping others find purpose again." Eli hesitated. "I don't think I'm the kind of man people should look up to." Ross smiled sadly. "That's exactly why you are." After he left, Eli sat outside watching Mia play with her small kite in the yard. The wind tugged it upward, its tail twisting in the air. "Day!" she shouted, laughing. "Look, it's flying!" He smiled faintly. That night, he sat at the kitchen table staring at the Admiral's card. He thought of his brothers' faces, of Harris's message, of the civilians he'd saved. Then, he picked up the phone. "Admiral Ross, I'll do it." From then on, things began to change. Eli started working with young recruits every weekend, teaching them not just about discipline, but about endurance, compassion, and brotherhood. He taught them that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was choosing to stand when everything in you wanted to fall. The recruits admired him. They called him Coach Ghost. For the first time, Eli felt proud again. But the past doesn't always stay quiet. One evening after a long day at the training field, Eli drove home and found a letter waiting in his mailbox. It was from the family of one of his fallen crew members, Lieutenant Harris's wife. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a photo of Harris and his son standing on a beach, both smiling. The note read, "Eli, he talked about you often. He said if anything ever happened, you'd make sure his sacrifice meant something. You did. Thank you for keeping your promise." Eli set the letter down and wept quietly, the kind of tears that come only when a wound finally starts to heal. He wasn't a ghost anymore. He was alive, and his brothers lived through every life he touched. Months passed, and the mentorship program grew under his guidance. Maya was proud of her dad. She'd tell her friends, "My dad teaches heroes how to be brave." One bright afternoon, there was another base event, this time honoring mentors like Eli. Admiral Ross called him on stage, the crowd cheering. "This man," Ross said, "was once a shadow among us. Today, he's a beacon." Ali looked out at the audience, at Mia waving, at the recruits smiling, and something inside him finally settled. He took the microphone, his voice low but steady. "I used to think surviving was a burden," he said. "But it's a gift. It means we get to keep the memory of those who can't. It means we get to keep living for them. So, if you're struggling, if you've lost something, or someone, don't give up. Sometimes, ghosts just need a reason to come back to life." The crowd stood in silent respect, many wiping their eyes. The Admiral stepped forward, saluted him, and whispered, "Welcome home, Ghost 5. And as the national anthem began to play and the sunlight poured over the field, Eli lifted his gaze toward the horizon. For the first time in years, he didn't see ghosts in the waves. He saw peace.